All right. Good afternoon once again.
Good
It's
afternoon,
been a
ma'am.
very interesting session. Yes, so I been a very interesting session. I'm glad I'm part of this historic event again. I was there last year live, and I'm glad I'm part of it. I bring you warm greetings from the Executive Secretary, National Commission for Persons with Disabilities. We would have so much love to be with you. However, due to exigencies of duties and of course, the nature of his work. But however, he sends his warm greetings and he congratulates the Center for Youth Studies. So quickly, this is a presentation that the Executive Secretary should make, and so I will be making the presentation on his behalf. And so we're talking about disabilities, its attendant challenges and strategies for a fulfilling life. And so let's start briefly by looking at what disability is. I have shared my slide. Are you with my slides there? Hello? Do I go on? Hello, do I go on?
Yes, ma'am, we have your slide and it's being displayed presently.
Okay, so quickly, disability is just an umbrella term for impairments, its activity limitations, and participation restriction. Of course, it can also be defined as any condition of the body or mind. So here the impairment comes to play that makes it more difficult for a person with the condition to do certain activities. That's activity limitation, and also interact with the world around them, participation, restriction. However, the global definition by the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities defines disability as any long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairment, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder the full and effective participation of persons with disabilities in the society on an equal basis with others. So the key words we have here are activity limitation and participation restriction. So what are those models of disability? Of course, there are four main lenses in which disability is viewed. The charity model that sees disability as something in the body that can be cured and should be cured. It's an extension of the medical model. The medical model perceives disability as a consequence of a health condition, disease, or trauma. And then the social model views disability as being caused by the way society is organized. And then we have human rights model. Of course, that's the angle from which disability is properly viewed. Is based on basic human rights principles, right to life, right to education, right to every called human right, which recognizes disability as a part of human diversity that must be respected and supported in all its ramifications. So there are 11 disability clusters in Nigeria. Looking at the disability clusters we have, and we have the physical disability, we have the deaf, we have the blind, we have the deaf blind, the albinism, we have intellectual and developmental disability, where we have autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, dyslexia. Then we have also the psychosocial disability. We have leprosy, also called unseen. We have spinal bifida and hydrocephalus. We have spinal cord injury. And then we have persons of little stature, commonly referred to as dwarf. Well, we feel that dwarf is kind of not too polite, so persons of little stature. So some of the challenges that persons with disabilities face in Nigeria can be categorized into the physical or architectural barrier, information or communication barriers. So I'll quickly look at the physical Examples of these are steps and curbs that blocks the access for persons with a physical disability from entering the building or using a sidewalk. Then in assessing health services, women with disabilities cannot access mammography. It's also a physical barrier because they actually cannot stand to access that. And then we have the information or communication barrier. This has to do with when businesses or public gatherings and meetings offer information in only one way, not providing information in large prints and braille, or no braille on elevators, no audio on elevators, or absence of sign language interpretation. And this type of barrier most often affects people with sensory disability, the blind, the deaf blind. And then we have economic barriers. There are a number of factors that affect the economic stability of persons with disabilities. And these include access to needed support and services. Unemployment, of course, is one of them. Lack of reasonable accommodation to ensure access to formal education and training, coupled with the additional cost of living or having a disability, as in it's of course very difficult to navigate through life having a disability because of the attendant costs. Then we have the technological barriers. When technology is not accessible to persons with disabilities, some of the examples of this are the poor user interface, lack of computer and website accessibility. Earlier on, I heard Dr. mentioned universal design. Organizational barriers is also one barrier where policies and practices and procedures do not give room for equal opportunities for persons with disabilities. Of course, we still have this in some of our military and paramilitary organizations. Then we have the attitudinal barrier. This is the mother of them all. And then, of course, they include our perception about persons with disabilities. We often hear people make such remark as persons with disabilities are aggressive. And then when I hear such statement, I ask, for every action, there is a reaction. You cannot treat a person with disabilities politely, and the person will react in an aggressive form. You don't expect to step on my toe and slap me as a person with disability, and you expect me to smile at you and tell you, thank you. So of course, so when it turns me off when I hear things like persons with disabilities are just aggressive. You cannot please them, because that is not true. Our personal belief also is one attitudinal barrier that persons with disabilities are confronted with, and persons with disabilities are not second-class citizens, and as such should not be treated as such. They should not be pitied. We don't want to be pitied. We are not weak. We want to be empathized with. We are not weak. And the extreme of this is some beliefs that persons with disabilities are paying for sin they committed in their earlier lives, and as such should be left to face the consequences. And then one aspect of this called attitudinal barrier is of course culture. And so what are the ways, how can we overcome these challenges as social workers? How can we, and persons with disabilities, how can we advocate, how can we sensitize the society, and how can persons with disabilities also navigate in order to live a value-added life? Of course, removal of physical barriers by providing accessible sidewalks, ramps, or level building entrances. I'm sorry I'm rushing through this because I learned that we do not have much time. Then automatic doors, automated doors, and wide doorways, good lightnings and color contrast. There is also a need for accessible line areas, waiting areas, and service counters. And so for technological barrier, what way can we mitigate it? The use of universal design in designing these hardwares, which allows for modifications, should be promoted. For information and communication barriers, we should escalate and make information available in accessible format, provision of braille and audio materials, large prints, as well as sign language interpreters, to mention a few. And so coming to the economic barriers, what can we do to confront it or to mitigate it? Strategies: provision of inclusive and adequate educational facilities. That is one. Secondly, provision of disability inclusive social services and economic opportunities, such as the social safety net program. Then we should also escalate the implementation of the 5% job reservation in all MDAs at both the federal and state levels, and by extension to privately owned businesses. Of course, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities has been working in this area and a lot of areas in the area of inclusive education, the 5% job reservation for qualified and competent persons with disabilities, and then organizational barriers. How can we forge ahead and work through these? Organizational policies are encouraged to be disability inclusive. Nothing about us without us, leaving no one behind. Secondly, organizations should be deliberate in recognizing the competencies of persons with disabilities. I've seen some adverts, and of course I've applied in some, and at the note you get to read persons with disabilities are encouraged to apply for this. It will go a long way as well. And then how do we tackle attitudinal barrier? We should respect the privacy of persons with disabilities. That we have a disability doesn't mean we are deaf for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to take advantage of. And I said it earlier, empathy and not sympathy. I also said never patronize a person with disability. A person with disability does his or her work, and you're like, wow, in spite of his disability, in spite of her disability. I mean, for me, I think it sounds more like a pity tone rather than empathy, rather than commendation. So, and we should rather not throw such words around persons with disabilities. And when talking with a person with disability that has an aid or a guide, please engage the person with disability in conversation and not talk to the aid or the guide. Give persons with disabilities the same respect that you would also want to be given. And remember that all of us are unique, and this applies to persons with disabilities too. So we should judge people on their individual merit and not on stereotypes. Finally, I want to say that we should avoid labeling people as disabled or physically challenged. Rather, we should refer to the person first. Person with a disability, not a person living with a disability. Disability is not my flatmate, it's not my spouse, it's not a disease that I live with, it's a condition. So, and not disability first. Nike, a person with disability. Not a person with disability, her name is Nike. I am Nike, a person with disability. And finally, I want to encourage us all to bear in mind that the person before you, as a person with disability, is a personality and not an object. Thank you very much.